Hey guys, Languagehacker here. It's been a little bit since the expansion came out, and I want to talk about the 5 best decks in Castle Nathria. So let's dive in and talk about each one. Imp Warlock. Unsurprisingly, based off of theory crafting and the initial couple of weeks, I'm sure most of you know that Imp Warlock is all over ladder, and it's quite good. This is the most recent list that's kind of come out with a little bit more top end, Sire Denathrius, Kel'Thas, and Merloculas coming in over some of the weaker synergistic cards in the deck. And this gives you some late game potential against slower decks in general and against bad matchups. Something like Skeleton Mage, for example, is tough for this deck to get through. And this gives you an alternative win condition. Gigafin as well can help you against board-centric decks that control your board as well. So this just lets you flip the board back on them. Wig Priest is a great example of a deck that this is good against. I think the most popular list on HS Replay actually runs Bloodbound Imps, but these cards have awful stats and they're kind of yucky. They hit you in the head instead of hitting your opponent. Well, they hit your opponent in the head. Whatever. I don't think you should run this card. I put in Grimoire for Sacrifice. Helps against mages. Helps us in the mirror. It's fine against Shaman. It's fine against Wig Priest. And that's a lot of the meta, so I'd recommend trying that out. Otherwise, pretty straightforward. A bunch of Imp cards. A bunch of Imp Synergy cards. Some buffs. A Starfish to get through Shamans. Pretty good. Not too much to say about this. Pretty good aggressive deck. Sometimes you have some weak hands, but thankfully, Warlock can tap to get out of those spots. So I'd recommend that. Control Shaman next up. This is by far one of the most flexible decks we've ever seen in Hearthstone. Its win condition is very varied, but its main sort of strength is how much disruption it has. It's also survivable, but one of the main reasons this is a good deck is because of how much disruption it has. It's 40 cards, so you don't die to aggro. There's a lot of different combos you can do in here. So let's talk about some of them. You still have the Murloc package. Drawing Murloc's good. Cheating mana out with Clownfish, good. Card draw, tempo, both good. Mutinous, good because it fits the whole Murloc thingy. And it's disruption. It can get rid of your opponent's win conditions and just your opponent's minions. That paired together with Bran or Bolner or Macaw's, excellent. You can chomp a lot of things. But all of this package, the Bolner, Bran, Macaw stuff, works with all of the things you do. So that's what makes Shaman so strong, which means that if you're Denathrius, suddenly you can do more Denathriuses. As Denathrius gets infused more and more, the actual battle cry on the card changes, which means that the Macaw will copy how big the Denathrius was. It won't have lifesteal, but it will copy the battle cry, which means you can kill people with like Denathrius and then follow it up with like Bolner, Macaw, and then just all the damage happens again, which is a nice little wombo combo. Theotar as well, very good disruption card. This paired together with Bran can let you steal your opponent's win conditions, Sire Denathrius or hero cards or whatever. Very good disruptive. You can do it with Macaw, but I believe it's random. So, hands off the wheel if you want to take your chances on that, but it's technically something that does work. Same thing with Bolner. I think Bolner, Theotar, the second trigger will be random. Otherwise, just good cards, right? We have disruptive tools with Primordial Wave, which helps against Wig Priest or just any board you're not comfortable dealing with. Command of Neptulon, very good at generating a board, removing some stuff. These are both nature spells. Schooling is insane as well, and those are the only 3 spells in the deck. 6 spells in total, 3 unique ones, which means Dungeoneer is very good. Draws cards, and it often draws nature cards, and when it draws nature cards, it also then draws Snowfall Guardian, which is good at freezing boards, blah, blah, blah. You guys know this. It's been a few expansions already. We hate this card. Please get rid of it. Where was I going with this? Sleepbreaker is the other elemental you can pull, and technically Amalgam as well. So it's not guaranteed to draw Snowfall Guardian, but it's still pretty good. Card draw package we talked about a bit. Famished Fool. I think Habugab's initial list, this is very, I think Habugaba came up with this sort of idea. But this list is a bit different. One Famished Fool has been cut in this list. Actually, I think HS Replay is 2, but I'm telling you to cut it because you have too many hands where you get clogged up, and I think 2 Famished Fools is a bit too many. Muck Pools, very good. You can play it on 1, just evolve stuff. You can evolve a totem and you still just get tempo out of that, but mainly it's good with your Battlecry cards, right? Because Battlecries are generally understated. So Dungeoneer, evolve that, sure. Gorlock Ravager, Famished Fool, get a 6-drop, nice. Knoll is a very good way to win games. Knoll into the Muck Pools, very nice. Couple of individual win conditions. Glug can steal games. Rakan just win some matchups as well. Devour can help you in a long-term game plan against board-centric decks. Am I missing anything? That's more or less all of it. The more recent list, I think, it should have Caretaker. I'm not sure if HS Replay has the most recent sort of like hot thing going around. But Crud Caretaker was included over Famished Fool, and I think over Murloc Homes, because those cards did not have great stats. I think it's still important to have some card draw, so keeping 1 Fool is fine. But this gives you a few more 4-mana plays. And as you can see from this curve, if those 2 Caretakers were removed, we'd have no 4-mana plays. But now we have a few more. It's fine. It technically works with Macaw and Bran and Bolner. And you can Muck Pools evolve the Crud Caretaker. You can also evolve the Crud Taker with Primordial Wave. There's a lot of interesting synergies within the deck. Play it, play some cards, figure it out. It's a good deck. It beats like almost everything in this meta, which is why it's so popular. Next up, Quest Hunter. Unsurprisingly, Quest Hunter got a bit better once the expansion came out, but now that we've had some time to look at stats and see how it performs, it looks pretty good. The main new cards are Stag Charge and Wild Spirits. These are the Wild Seed cards that are coming out. This is just dealing damage, which can go face, which progresses the quest, and can be board control, which is nice. And Wild Spirits, despite not actually progressing the quest, is a very, very strong card. If you look at the win rate for this card on HSP Play, despite not progressing your quest, this is one of the highest mulligan win rate cards in the deck, which is saying something, right? If it doesn't progress your main win condition. But your win condition can just be tempo, so it's fine. This is pretty good. Well, I say tempo. There's not too many ways to actually get on board with this deck without Tavish, but still, it's a good card. Tempo good. Otherwise, the deck is pretty much the exact same as it was last expansion. Yeah, not much to be said about this one. It's not super interesting. It can play out, interestingly, but there's really nothing new here. It's just the those 4 cards mentioned, which does make the deck more consistent. I should also note that this is a nature spell. Which means that you have an extra spell school. Before you only had Shell Shot as nature, but now there's 2 nature spells, so Multicaster is a bit more consistent in this deck. But yeah, this is well placed against some of the decks in the meta. It seems to be particularly good against Skeleton Mage, apparently, according to stats, and it's okay against Imp Lock. It's not great against Imp Lock, but it's okay. Yeah. So it's well placed in the meta. This might fall out of favor if the decks it's good against start changing. Like, this might get worse now if people start switching to Big Spell Mage, for example, over Skeleton Mage. Next up, Naga Priest. Unsurprisingly, this deck just got better. The location gives more consistent card draw, which helps you find your wigs faster and your other cards that you want. Some Nagas have been cut in the deck to make space for these, but 2 Cathedrals. Pelagos is insane. After you cast a spell on a friendly minion, set its attack and health to the higher of the 2. Just absurd. Very, very powerful. Sometimes you can even play it on curve, and if your opponent can't deal with it, awesome. You just start buffing random stuff, and then you have suddenly won the game. So yeah, the Naga density is smaller, but you have more card draw, which means you still get the stuff more often. Also, you don't need to make one big thing off the wigs at this point. You don't have to like all in on one thing. You can just make a bunch of medium to big size stuff. And Boon of the Ascendant helps with that. Like 1 minion with a wig on it, slap a boon, bam, extra +2 health and like an extra 4/6 body. That's all with taunt. And this doesn't get silenced because the Kyrian that is spawned it has taunt, but its stats are not like buffed. It's just those are its initial stats. So if it gets silenced, it loses taunt, but it still keeps the stats, which is good if you're worried that your opponent's going to silence your board. You can go like Radiant, bunch of buffs, and then boon it. So then even if the Radiant gets silenced, you get another big thing, which is nice. You can double dip in the stats you're giving a target. Partner in Crime has been a really good card that came out as well, but too many 4-mana cards, including this deck, makes it a bit too inconsistent. So because of that, this list on HSR Replay I think only runs 1, but it's pretty good. Partner in Crime plus any buff just gets propagated to the other Partner in Crime that gets summoned from this. So it's really good. Partner in Crime Shadow Devour is nice. Partner in Crime Bless. Partner in Crime Boon. Basically any buff. Samuro is still pretty good in the deck, especially with Cathedral of Atonement. You have another way to buff Samuro now instead of Bless, which is really nice. Cathedral on 3, and then the Threat of Samuro after that is very powerful against board-centric decks. Najok to seal some stuff, still very good. Otherwise, the deck operates pretty similarly to before. The one thing to note is that Thrive in the Shadows now less consistently gets your Serpent Wig because we're running an extra spell here, Boon of the Ascendant. So keep that in mind with mulligans and whatnot. But this card is very good. This deck is very good. This is actually one of the decks I brought to the Masters Tour. I actually brought most of these decks to the Masters Tour. I brought Imp Warlock, Control Shaman, and Naga Priest. Huh, look at that. Anyways, last but not least, Skeleton Mage was actually the best / popular. But over the past few days, partially because of the Masters Tour, and a couple days before the Masters Tour, which is a tournament that went on this past weekend, Big Spell Mage kind of made a comeback. It seems to be doing better against the meta than Skeleton Mage was, and primarily it's also better into Skeleton Mage as well, which is a big deal if people are trying to target Skeleton Mage in tournaments, or I guess on ladder if you really care. But yeah, it's just 28 cards, old big Spell Mage. The new cards that have been added are Nightcloak Sanctums, because these are just very, very good cards. Good freeze / board control, which means you have more health, and it just summons board for you to fight other stuff with. It's very, very powerful. But the main idea is Belinda, Barbaric Sorceress, play some big spells, copy them with parrots, blah, 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 win the game. Mordresh Magister as an alternate win condition. And, oh yeah, Theotar for disruption as well. So I guess it's 3 cards different. I think the old list used to run 2 Starfish. I don't know what was cut for the Sanctums, but it's not really important. Sanctums are very, very good, so it makes sense that they're in here. Whew. Okay, we've talked about these 5. These are, I think, the top 5 decks right now to climb with on ladder. Try them out. All the deck lists are below. Happy climbing, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.